All right, folks, I think I should be live, but I'm going to wait for confirmations on chat. Please let me know if you can hear me and see me all right, and then we can get started. Let me know, folks, if the AV is clear. People on chat, if you can just let me know. I know there's a lag. Okay, it's clear. Great. Thank you, Yogeshwari. All right, I hope it's clear for others as well. It will just help psychologically. I don't trust YouTube. If somebody else can also respond and say if the AV is clear. 2M team, can you please let me know? Okay, thank you, Nitin. All right, people, let's get started now. So thank you, Alban, as well. My team has sent the link to the document, okay, which we're going to solve today. Now, if you're new to this series, I'll quickly explain to you what VRC Blitzkrieg is. We do this every year. In short, what we're going to do is we're going to solve all the questions of CAT 23 VRC. Okay, so I do this session every Friday at 8 p.m. It will usually last for about 2 hours. I've been doing this. I think this is my 5th week of doing this. You can check all the previous sessions on our channel. So today what we're going to do is we are on slot 2 and we're going to discuss the remaining 2 RCs today. We did the first 2 RCs last week. We'll finish the 2 RCs today so that next week we can do slot 2 verbal ability and then close slot 2. Then, of course, 3 weeks we will do slot 3 as well. Okay. Good evening, Bharat. Good to see you here. Okay, so that's what we do. Now, whenever we're discussing RCs, what I always request you folks is that you pre-read the RCs. Okay, they're always there in the YouTube description. So if you go to the YouTube description, you will see a link to the document that contains the RCs that we're discussing today. My team has sent this on chat as well. So I always tell students pre-read the RCs and come, and then we can solve the questions together. All right, this is to save time. I understand some of you might not have read the RCs in advance. I'll give you some time, but that will be limited time. Just go through the RC, quickly extract the main idea, and then we can start discussing the questions. I'll tell you which RC to read. Just hold on. Okay. Now, before that, for non-2IM students, we have CAT 24 test series. Okay. It's a very, very fabulous course that includes 26 full-length mocks. Okay. It also has 8,000 practice questions, out of which 5,000 are at CAT level. And we also give you past CAT papers as mocks from 2017. Okay, so all of this is available to you for, the original price is 5,999. It's available to you for 4,999. You can use the coupon code 2IMCAT. All the details are in chat. Okay, so you can link, use the coupon code, and you can get it for 4,999. 26 full-length mocks, 8,000 practice questions, and past papers from 2017 in the form of mocks. Okay, 2IM students, of course, that's a part of your course, so don't bother about it. Non-2IM students, if you're interested, you can go for it. All right. Okay, now the promotional message is over. Let me get started now. We're going to read history first. Okay, again, the title doesn't matter, but if you go to the document, okay, the first passage that is there, I want you to read the first RC. Okay, I'll give you about 5 minutes. Read the first RC. Please extract the main idea in your own words in 2 to 3 sentences, send it on chat, and then we'll start discussing the questions. Of course, I'll discuss the main idea as well. Okay, go for it, people. You might find it complex, but it's okay. With complex content, I always say, go through it, and extract a broad main idea. Don't get stuck in details. Okay, even if your main idea is broad, it's fine. Just extract something and then see whatever questions you can solve. Okay, go for it, read. I'll give you 5 minutes and then we'll get started. Please send me the main idea on chat once you're done. That's very important. Good evening, Lokesh and Serene Sea Monster. I still don't know your name, so I'm going to keep calling you Serene Sea Monster. Don't read it from the slide. Read it from the document that is there in the YouTube description or in chat. Click on the document. Read the passage from there. Interesting. Ayush, I just read your main idea. Good attempt for sure. Okay, because it's a complicated passage. Um, I would say you're partially correct, Ayush. The first part seems correct. The second part, I'm not so sure. Okay. So rethink about the second part. All right. But the first part is correct. But good attempt. Nitin, a very generic main idea. Okay. You'll have to go deeper than that. Because when you say the passage revolves around the influence of group of facts and drawing conclusions from them, that's actually not the main idea. There's much more to the RC than that. Okay. Okay. I think you're still typing, so I'll let you type and then I'll give you my take on it. Other folks, I strongly encourage you to send me the main idea. This is a skill that you should develop. This will determine your success in RC, whether you're able to extract the main idea successfully or not. It needs a lot of practice. Nitin, no problem. Finish your main idea and then I'll comment on it. Let me know when you're done. Is this something that I can change from my end? The YouTube chat length, comment length? I don't know. I'll check if there's a setting. I doubt it though. If there is a setting, I'll just like increase the word length for next time. Location interesting. Continue. I'd love to see what the rest of your main idea looks like. Okay, no problem. No problem. Take your time. Take your time. All right, folks, how are we doing on time? Do you need more time? I know it's a complicated passage, but just let me know if you need more time. Otherwise, we'll start discussing. Okay, folks, last call. If you need more time, let me know. Okay, Lokesh, two observations. First, these facts and the second facts are not quality facts. Lokesh, very much on the right track. Very much on the right track. I think yours till now is the closest to the main idea. Okay, so good job. And I like the way you've picked up relevant words from the passage, right? I always say that don't try to invent the main idea in your head with your own words. Pick up whatever you think is relevant. That way, you will stay very close to the passage. So I think that's what Lokesh has done. You're very much on the right track, Lokesh. Ayush, yeah, that is an issue. There's something else as well. We'll talk about it. Nitin, you're getting close. You're definitely getting close. Historian's way of writing and fact selection. Vaishali, that's very broad. You'll need to elaborate a little bit on that. Okay. All right, people. Let's start discussing since nobody has asked for time. Now, you must have found this passage complex. In chat, you can tell me what is your assessment of the complexity of the passage content on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most complex. How would you rate the complexity of the language of this passage? Let me know. Okay. Now, what I'll do is, I'm just thinking. Okay, we'll go to questions. All right. We'll discuss the questions first, and then I'll come back and discuss the main idea. Because if I give you the main idea now, then kind of that might give away some answers, right? So we'll discuss questions and then we'll come back and discuss the main idea. Yeah, 7 to 8, 9, I expected that. It is difficult, okay? The language is difficult and also it's abstract content, okay? It's not concrete. So that's why also you would have found it complex, all right? So let's now go to questions and then we'll come back to the main idea. I'm happy to explain this passage in detail. Okay, all right. The RC is too complex. I agree, MRL gaming. It is a complex RC. Okay. All right. Now let's look at this. The first question is up on your screen. Okay. Read the question carefully. It's a critical reasoning question. Take your time with this and vote in the poll. Okay. If you need to go back to specific portions of the RC, feel free to go back. Don't hesitate. Don't go back and read the whole RC. But specific portions pertaining to this question, that's always, you should do that to improve your accuracy. Okay. Take your time with this one. This question is also a little tricky. I will run the poll now. The poll is up on your screen. Please vote in the poll. Take your time. Yeah, you should still do the questions. Your motivation, please do the questions. Okay. And I'll keep sort of explaining bits and pieces of the passage as well. But go ahead and do the question. If required, go back to specific portions and reread them. Okay, but try the questions. Yeah, I can understand why the question is confusing you. Take your time. If the question stem is confusing you, this is what we call the question stem without the options. Break it down. I'll explain to you how to break it down, but break down the question stem and try to figure it out. Okay, let me, till you're voting, let me answer your motivations question. If I've started reading and felt to be unable to comprehend well, should I go for the next passage or attend the questions? Okay, good. So if this is in the test, in the exam, right, or in a mock, what you should do is you start reading a passage, okay, around the halfway mark, okay, 40 to 50% mark. When you're done reading 40 to 50% of the content, ask yourself, do I have a handle on the main idea so far? You've read 40 to 50%. Ask yourself, am I able to extract the main idea of what I've read so far? If you're able to extract the main idea in a reasonable way, continue reading. Okay, continue reading, extract the main idea, and solve whichever questions you're comfortable with. But at the halfway mark, if you're like, I don't understand anything, I'm not able to extract the main idea at all, then leave that passage, go to the next one. That's what you should do. Okay. All right, people. Now I will give you maybe 40 more seconds, and then we'll wrap it up. Go for it. Sambit, check. The poll is up on the screen. You should be able to see it. Refresh the screen if required. Okay, last 10 seconds, people. I'll end the poll now. Okay, let's see how you voted. Now, as you can see from the vote itself, you're split, and whenever this happens, that's an indication that you found the question tough, and the question is tricky. 34% of you are saying 2. Okay, 25% is saying 4. 20% is saying 1 and 3. You folks are quite split. Okay. All right. Now pay attention on the screen. Let's discuss this question in detail, and I'll discuss relevant portions of the RC as well. I don't want to give the main idea right now. I'll give it to you at the end. Okay. All right. Now just focus here. Let's first of all try to decipher the question stem. It says all of the following, if true, can weaken the passage's claim that facts do not speak for themselves except. Now there is an except also here. If except is confusing you, first read it without except. All of the following if true. Now, when a question says if true, that means you have to assume that all the 4 options are true. Because it says if true. So assume all the 4 options are true per the passage. Don't look for evidence in the passage. Assume that they are true. Okay? All of the following if true can weaken the passage's claim that facts do not speak for themselves. Now, there is a claim in the passage which says facts do not speak for themselves. There is a claim that the author is making in the passage. Okay, we'll go back and check. This is the author's claim that facts do not speak for themselves. Now it says all of the following, if true, can weaken the passage's claim. So now we are reading it without except. All 4 options weaken this claim. All 4 options weaken this claim. Now bring in except 1. All 4 options weaken this claim except 1. Your job is to pick the one that does not weaken this claim. Read it without except, bring an except, write it down on your notepad if required, point an arrow and say, I'm looking for the option that does not weaken the claim. so that you don't get confused when you're solving the question. I hope this is clear. Give me a thumbs up if it's clear. If it's not, I'll explain it later. All right. Okay. So we're looking for an option that does not weaken. 3 will weaken. 1 will not weaken. We're looking for the one that does not weaken. Now, first of all, before even going to the options, go back to the RC and understand in what context did the author say facts do not speak for themselves. First, understand that, then only come to options. Build a shadow answer. Okay, so let's go back. We're not even looking at the options yet. The author says here that it used to be said that facts speak for themselves. This is, of course, untrue. Now, why does the author say that? Let's try to understand it. Okay, so we'll read this whole paragraph quickly. It says the second observation is that the necessity to establish these facts rests not on any quality in the facts themselves, but on a priori decision of the historian. Okay, in spite of C.P. Scott's motto, every journalist knows today, blah, 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 that the most effective way to influence opinion is by the selection and arrangement of appropriate facts. It used to be said that facts speak for themselves. I'm just quickly reading it. This is, of course, untrue. The facts speak only when the historian calls on them. It is he who decides to which facts to give the floor and in what order or context. Okay. Now understand here what the author is saying. Tell me one thing. Does the author believe, based on this and based on the RC, does the author believe that facts can stand on their own? Or let me ask you this. Does the author believe that facts can stand on their own without a historian? Can facts survive on their own? Can facts stand on their own without a historian? No. The author clearly says that facts need a historian's interpretation. Okay? So that's why the author is saying that it used to be said that facts speak for themselves. That means they can stand on their own. They don't need anything else. But the author says this is, of course, untrue. The facts speak only when the historian calls on them. There can be 100 facts, 100 historical facts. But the author is saying they become relevant only when the historian decides to pick them. So for instance, hypothetically speaking, the historian, out of these 100 facts, the historian picks 73, 85, and 95. Only these 3 out of 100. The author is saying only these 3 are relevant. The other 97 will not see the light of the day because the historians decided not to pick them. So the historians select facts. They decide to which facts to give the floor and in what order or context. So the historian's role is very important. A fact cannot stand on its own without the historian's interpretation. That's what the author is saying. So if you read it, the author here clearly says in the end, the belief in a hardcore of historical facts existing objectively and independently of the interpretation of the historian is a preposterous fallacy. Absurd. It's absurd to believe that facts can stand on their own. They're very intertwined with the historian. The historian will select, the historian will decide, and the interpretation of the historian matters. Is this clear? This is what the author means when the author says facts do not speak for themselves. Okay, so first you have to understand this. Now you go back and now try to solve the question. Because see, this question is completely dependent on the claim. If you don't understand the claim, how will you decide whether the option weakens or not? Now we understand what the claim is. Now let's look at an option which does not weaken it. Remember, 3 will weaken, 1 will not weaken. Let's look at it. Okay. Number 1, the truth value of a fact is independent of the historian who expresses it. The truth value of a fact is independent of the historian. So the option is saying, and you have to consider the option as true, that fact is independent of the historian. In other words, fact can stand on its own. It does not need a historian. Does 1 weaken the author's claim? Think about it. The option is saying fact is independent of the historian. Fact can stand on its own without the historian. Does it weaken the claim that facts do not speak for themselves? Yes, it does. Because the option is basically telling you, in other words, that facts speak for themselves, or facts can speak for themselves. Because you can remove the historian. That's what the option is saying. The fact will still exist. That means the facts speak for themselves. This weakens the author's claim that facts do not speak for themselves. So this is not our answer. Remember, it's if true. So we assume that they are true. Okay, let's go to the next one. Facts like truth can be relative. What is fact for person X may not be so for person Y. Understand the option first. It's saying that facts are relative. What is fact for person X may not be for person Y. That means the option is saying that facts are person dependent, isn't it? Facts are person dependent. That means, can facts speak for themselves? No, because they're person dependent. The person will decide what is fact, is the option is, that is what the option is saying. Person X will say this is a fact for me. Person Y will say no, this is not a fact for me. So the person's interpretation matters, which aligns with facts do not speak for themselves. This does not weaken. So we're going to park it. Okay, we'll look at 3. A fact by its very nature is objective and universal, irrespective of the context in which it is placed. This is giving a lot of power to the fact. It's objective and universal. That means it's universally accepted. There are no interpretations. There are no multiple interpretations. Irrespective of the context in which that means it's completely independent. This weakens the author's claim. Okay. The order in which a series of facts is presented does not have any bearing on the production of meaning. Now, this was the second choice. Let me take you back. What does it say here? It is he who decides to which facts to give the floor and in what order or context. The order or context by the historian matters. Here it's saying the order in which a series of facts is presented does not have any bearing. So it's weakening the claim. Because the claim says the order and the context matters. Here it says the order does not matter. So it weakens the claim. This is not our answer. The answer is 2. Okay, I hope this is clear. I just wanted to explain to you very sort of clearly. Okay, remember this. First of all, we understood how to break this question type. Remember that. Remember to build a shadow answer wherever possible. Don't look at the options first. Go back and try to build an answer on your own. Then come back and look at the options. Because if you directly look at the options, options will confuse you. Is this clear? Give me a thumbs up quickly. I'll just wait. I just want to make sure that you got this. Very quickly, people, give me a thumbs up. I know there's a lag, but I'm just going to wait for this one. I need a confirmation before we proceed. Quickly, folks. Quickly, can I get a few thumbs ups? Yes, please, or no, if it's not clear. Awesome, great. Keep doing that. Interaction in my class. I can't find the thumb. No problem. You can say okay. All right. Can you please explain option 1 once again? Okay, very quickly. The truth value of a fact is independent of the historian who expresses it. This is Janvi. This option is disconnecting a fact with the historian. It is saying it's independent of the historian's interpretation. The claim says the historian's interpretation matters. The historian matters. The fact cannot exist on its own without the historian. That's what the claim says. The option is saying the fact is independent. That means it can exist on its own without the historian, and that's why it's weakening it. Okay? All right. If you still have doubts, I will explain it once again later. Just remind me. Okay? Let's go to the, so it is dependent. Yes, it is dependent. No, hold on. It says the fact is independent of the historian, right? Fact is independent. The claim says fact is dependent. Claim says it's dependent. Option is saying it's independent. So it's weakening, right? It's opposite. What's the confusion here? Claim says it is dependent on the historian. Option is saying it is independent. These two are different, contrasting, so it weakens it. Okay? All right. Let's go to question 2. Do this, and we will then discuss it. I'll start the poll. You can vote in the poll. If you've liked the session so far, please give us a like on the YouTube stream. on the YouTube video. Okay, it just helps us in visibility. So go ahead and like it if you're enjoying the session. Otherwise, don't like it. Okay, thanks, Janvi. The poll is up on your screen. Take your time. Don't rush with these questions. This one is also quite tricky. Okay, people, I'll end the poll in 30 seconds. Okay, I'm ending the poll now. Right. So Bharat is saying the question is really tricky. I agree. Okay, how many of you found this question tricky? Or rather, let me ask you this question a different way. In an exam, would you solve this question? Yes or no? Just put that in chat while I write your votes down. 44% of you are saying two. Okay, this is your first choice. 38% is saying one, which is very close to the second choice. 11% is saying 3, okay, and 5% is saying 4. This is how you voted. 1, 2, and 3 are close. Rather, 1 and 2 are very close. Okay. Okay. So, right. All of you seem to be saying no. Kudos on that. Okay. I'll tell you why I'm saying kudos on that. If you have realized that this question is tricky and you should be leaving this in the exam, you're on the right track. I'm not saying everyone should leave this question, but most people should have left this question. It's a very tricky question. The passage is complex. The options are also tricky. So if you have realized that, okay, this is not my territory, most likely you're correct. Good job. And it's kind of clear from the options as well. So we'll discuss the question. But if you were thinking of leaving it, you were on the right track. Objectively speaking, also, it's a very tricky question. Of course, if you were 90% confident of getting the right answer, that's a different story. But otherwise, most people should have left it. Let's look at it. Now, let's understand this. See, this question will not repeat, but you can pick up skills from solving this question that you can apply to other questions. So it's important to understand the right way to solve it. Okay. All right. If the author of the passage were to write a book on the Battle of Hastings along the lines of his or her own reasoning, the focus of the historical account would be on a superlatively tricky question. So it's an extrapolation question, because what's happening is the options that the question setter has given you are not from the passage. The options are kind of random. The scenario is hypothetical. If the author were to hypothetically write a book on the Battle of Hastings, what would be his focus? What would his focus be? So it's an extrapolation question, right? Extrapolation questions are tricky because you have to draw the understanding from the RC and then connect it to a random option. So it's quite tricky, generally. Okay. All right. Again, let's read it. If the author of the passage were to write a book on the Battle of Hastings along the lines of his or her reasoning, the focus of the historical account would be on. Okay. So let's go back, right? And let's just quickly understand in what context was Battle of Hastings mentioned, and then we'll come back. Okay. Let's try to build some sort of shadow answer. Okay. Where was Battle of Hastings? Okay. So here it says, okay, so in this paragraph, we have Hastings here. It says, what is the historical fact? All right. The fact, for example, that the Battle of Hastings was fought in 1066, but this view calls for two observations. In the first place, it is not with facts like these that the historian is primarily concerned. It is no doubt important to know that the great battle was fought in 1066 and not in 65 or 67, and that what is fought at Hastings and not at any other location. The historian must not get these things wrong. But what the author is saying is that this is a necessary condition of his work, not his essential function. So basically, in this paragraph, the author was saying that, okay, if we overemphasize on facts and say that facts are the be-all and end-all of history, the author doesn't agree with that. And one of the reasons the author says is that he agrees that a historian's job is to verify the accuracy of facts. But the author says that's their job. It's a necessary condition for their work, but that's not their primary function. According to the author, the primary function of a historian is not to verify the accuracy of facts. They have to do it, but that's a given. That's a basic necessary condition. But the primary function of a historian is different, is what the author is saying. Okay, so understand that this is the context in which Battle of Hastings was mentioned, and also here you'll have to understand the main idea also. So let me take you to the main idea now, and then we'll come back to the question. All right, I'll show you the main idea, but let me explain it to you. So see, there is one view. The first paragraph talks about the positivist view of history, okay, which is also called as what is it called? The common sense view of history. Now, we'll say common sense view of history. Now, what is common sense view of history? Common sense view of history emphasizes extremely on facts. It lays a lot of importance on facts and says, sort of, facts are the be-all and end-all of history. That's the common sense view of history. Does the author agree with this? Yes or no? Does the author agree with the common sense view? That facts are the be-all and end-all of history? Does the author agree with the common sense view? Does the author say that facts are enough? That's what history is all about? People, quickly, I need more answers. No, the author doesn't say that. There is one view, which is the common sense view, and the author says, then explains what is a historical fact and says, but this view calls for two observations. And then the author gives you two reasons as to why the author doesn't agree with this view. The common sense views puts a lot of emphasis on historical facts. The author says, no, I don't agree with this. First reason as to why the author doesn't agree is, let's write it down here, is to do with the historian's essential function or primary function. According to the author, the historian's essential function is not to verify the accuracy of facts. That's a necessary condition. Their primary function is something different. So that is one reason as to why the author doesn't agree with that view. The second reason is given in the last paragraph. Okay, where the author says that facts don't speak for themselves. They need a historian. Facts don't speak for themselves, cannot speak for themselves. The historian selects the facts, right? And the fact is very closely tied to the historian's interpretation. The facts cannot exist without a historian. That is the second reason. That's why the author doesn't agree with the common sense view, because the common sense view lays a lot of importance on facts. And the author says, no, I don't agree with that because of the two reasons. That is essentially your main idea. You can have a look at this. Okay. The common sense view of history places a lot of importance on facts. According to this view, there are certain basic facts which are same for all historians, and it considers them to be the backbone of history. I've borrowed these relevant sentences from the passage itself. The author disagrees with this view on two main counts. One, about the essential function. Second, facts do not speak for themselves. They need the historian's interpretation to exist. So this is your main idea. Okay. All right. Now let's go to question 2. If the author of the passage were to write a book on the Battle of Hastings along the lines of his or her reasoning. Now we know the author's reasoning. It's in contrast to the common view of history. The author believes that historians are very important. The historian's interpretation is important. So keep that in mind now and answer this question. So if the author were to write a book, the author would write a book and focus of the historical account would not be on facts, but on the historian or the historian's interpretation. Understand that. The focus of his account will not be on facts, will be on the historian's interpretation, or should be on the historian's interpretation. Let's look at it. Number 1, deriving historical facts from the relative documents and inscriptions. Can this be the author's approach? This option is focusing on facts. Does the author emphasize on facts? Think about it. No. This cannot be the author's focus. The author is against this. This is the common sense view of history. This is not the answer. Okay. Number 2, providing a nuanced interpretation by relying on the auxiliary sciences. Okay, we'll come back to this. Okay, let's park this. Exploring the social, political, and economic factors that led to the battle. Okay, now tell me one thing. Okay, we'll come back to this as well. I'll come back. Okay, producing a detailed timeline of the various events that led to the battle. Is this facts? Option 4. Is option 4 talking about facts? Yes or no? Option 4 is talking about facts, because it says detailed timeline of the various events. This can't be the author's approach. So we'll eliminate this. Now the tussle is actually between 2 and 3, which doesn't reflect in how you voted because it's a very tricky question. But the tussle is between 2 and 3. Now let's go to 2. Providing a nuanced interpretation by relying on the auxiliary sciences. Let's understand in what context was auxiliary sciences mentioned in the passage. Okay, let's look at this. Okay, let's understand this. This is a little tricky, so pay attention. It is precisely for matters of this kind that the historian is entitled to rely on what have been called the auxiliary sciences of history, archaeology, epigraphy, numismatics, chronology, and so forth. Understand the sentence, and now it becomes important. Now you'll have to focus on this detail because the option is talking about that. Initially, you don't need to. Okay, now explain to me, when the author says precisely matters of this kind, what kind is the author talking about here? Connect the dots and tell me. When it says this kind, meaning what kind? Or in other words, tell me, why does a historian need these auxiliary sciences? Battle of Hastings, that's not the answer, Lokesh. Think about it. You can't need auxiliary sciences to understand the Battle of Hastings. Okay, you're there in the territory. But give me a broader answer. The question is, why do historians need auxiliary sciences? Okay, all right. This is where the trickier part is. This is quite difficult to understand in the RC. Let's understand this, okay? Let's see the context. The historian must not get these things wrong. That means facts. But to praise a historian for his accuracy is like praising an architect for using well-seasoned timber or properly. Okay, fine. It is a necessary condition of his work, but not his essential function. This we know. The author says verifying the accuracy of facts is a historian's job. That's a necessity condition. That's not the primary function. It is precisely for matters of this kind. Here, when this author says this kind, the author is relating this to facts. The historian needs these auxiliary sciences to verify the accuracy of facts. It is precisely for matters of this kind. That means verifying the accuracy of facts, the historian needs these auxiliary sciences. So matters of this kind relates to facts, or more specifically, verifying the accuracy of facts. All right. The author says the historian needs that. But remember, the author also says this is not the historian's primary job. The primary job is different. The primary job is potentially interpretation. But these sciences are helping them to verify the accuracy of facts. Now let's go back to the question. Providing a nuanced interpretation by relying on the auxiliary sciences. If we go with this option, that means we are focusing on facts, isn't it? Yes or no? Providing a nuanced interpretation by relying on the auxiliary sciences. Auxiliary sciences are used to verify the accuracy of facts. If you go with option 2, you are focusing on facts. And that's not what we want. Now let's look at option 3. Exploring the socio-political and economic factors that led to the battle. This is context. There is a fact, Battle of Hastings. The option is exploring the context that led to the battle. Now go back and check this. One second. The facts speak only when the historian calls on them. It is he who decides to which facts to give the floor and in what order or context. The job of ordering, the job of providing context is that of a historian. And it is important for the author. If you look at that option is focusing on context and not on facts. And that's why option 3 is the answer. It's very tricky. Okay, this was a third choice, right? The answer is not 1, the answer is not 2, the answer is 3. That's why this question is extremely tricky. This is a very attractive option. Why? Because it's difficult to understand that particular statement. But that is connected to facts, so this can't be your answer. 3 is the answer because it's connected to context. In short, you should have left this question in the exam. All right? Okay, let's go on. I took quite a bit of time to explain this because this is tricky. Let's go to question 3. If you have any more questions about this, we'll come back to it. All right. Take this one. This one, hopefully you'll find it easier. I feel like I kind of gave away the answer for question 3 while I was explaining question 2. This sometimes happens, which is annoying. But yeah, but anyway, let's do it quickly and then we'll move to the next question. Yeah, Lokesh, I agree. I did kind of give away the answer. That's why with main idea also, I don't discuss it up front, because when I'm explaining the main idea, I can sometimes just, give away the answer. So that's why I don't do it. But yeah, apologies for that. Quickly, let's do this and then we'll go to the next one. Okay, last 10 seconds, people. Okay, let's see what the poll is saying. All right. 60% of you are going with 3. All right. And 26% is going with 2. 13% is going with 1, and no takers for 4. According to the passage, which one of the following statements best describes the significance of archaeology for historians? Remember, go back and build a shadow answer. Don't look at the options first. Archaeology is an auxiliary science. Okay, it's in that context it was mentioned. Now we understand when the author says it is precisely for matters of this kind, that means it's connected to facts, that the historian is entitled to rely on what have been called the auxiliary sciences. Or in other words, the historian needs these sciences, these auxiliary sciences, to verify the accuracy of facts. Here, this kind doesn't mean interpretation. Don't get it wrong. It's a little twisted the way the sentence is constructed. You can get confused, because here it says it is a necessary condition, but not is essential function. Some of you might have linked this kind to the essential function, but that's not what it is. Okay, this kind relates to the necessary condition, which is connected to facts, right? Or verifying the accuracy of facts. So what the author here is saying is that these auxiliary sciences help a historian with verifying the accuracy of facts. It is not connected to interpretation, and it's not connected to essential function. The essential function is potentially interpretation. It is not connected to that. It is connected to facts. Okay. Therefore, the answer here is, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but the answer here is indeed 3. Okay. I'll tell you why it's not 2. Archaeology helps historians to interpret. No. Interpretation is primary function. The auxiliary sciences are not connected to that. The auxiliary sciences are connected to facts. So we are going to go with a certain factual accuracy. It's not interpretation. Primary duty is interpretation. That is not what it's connected to. It's connected to ascertaining factual accuracy. And also think about it. Okay. How can one, because if one is true, then two will also be true, no? Think about it. One is saying archaeology helps historians to carry out the primary duty. The primary duty is potentially interpretation of facts. Two is saying archaeology helps historians to interpret historical facts. Isn't one and two saying the same thing? Almost. If one is two, then two will also be two. How can you have two correct options? Right? I mean, that's again an interesting way to think about the question. The answer is not that. The answer is 3. Okay. All right. Let's go to question 4. All right, people. Last 10 seconds. All right, let's see how you voted. Okay, 38% of you are going with 1. All right, this is your first choice. 27% is going with 2. Third, third and fourth have 16%. Okay, all right. All of the following describe the common sense view of history except. Okay, we know that from our main idea discussion that the common sense view of history focuses on facts, isn't it? It lays a lot of importance on facts. Facts are kind of the be all and end all of history as far as the common sense view is concerned. Right? It also kind of, if you think about it, the common sense view discounts the role of a historian. Because common sense view says facts can stand on their own. Facts are very important. And The common sense view doesn't really focus on the interpretation of that. The author's view is the opposite to that. The author focuses on interpretation and not so much on facts. So here it says all of the following describe the common sense view except. So that means 3 options describe the common sense view, 1 doesn't. And we have to pick the one that doesn't. Okay. All right. Let's look at option 3 and 4 first. History can be objective like the sciences if it is derived from historical facts. This is definitely the common sense view. The common sense view focuses on facts. Option 3 is definitely that. So this is not an answer. Remember, it's an except question. Real history can be found in ancient engravings and archival documents. What are these? These are facts. Ancient engravings and archival documents are facts. So this is the common sense view. This is not an answer. Now we're left with 1 and 2. Okay. History is like science, a selective system of cognitive orientations to reality. Selective system of cognitive orientations to reality. Let's go back and see how it is. In what context was this mentioned? Right. Professor Talcott Parsons once called science a selective system of cognitive orientations to reality. It might perhaps have been put more simply, but history is among other things that. This is the author's view, right? This is the author's view. And the author says history is like that, a selective system of cognitive orientations to reality. This is the author's view. The author's view is opposite to that of the common sense view. Number 1. And number 2, if you understand the statement, what is it talking about? It's talking about interpretation. A selective system of cognitive orientations to reality. So reality is facts. But we're talking about a selective system of cognitive orientation. So I look at the reality differently. You look at the reality differently. We are selecting, we are picking and choosing, we are perceiving it differently. So perception is different. Now, the moment you say the perception is different, we are talking about interpretations, which is connected to the author's view. This is not the common sense view. This is the author's view. Cognitive selective system. Historian also selects facts. Historian also interprets, which is cognitive orientations to reality. Okay. So let's go back. History is like science, a selective system of cognitive orientations to reality. This is not the common sense view, and hence this is our answer. Now, let me explain to you why this is not the answer. Now, you might have gotten confused there. Only the positive methods can lead to credible historical knowledge. What are the positivist methods? Not positivist. What is the positivist method? Go back. What is the positivist method? Does a positivist align to common sense view of history, or does a positivist align to the author's approach? Forget what, okay, Anirban, I get your question. I'll explain to you what a positivist is, but that's not required in this situation. We'll come down to that. Just answer this question. Is a positivist aligned to common sense view of history, or is a positivist aligned with the author? Common sense. Correct. The positivist, anxious to stake out their claim for history as a science, contributed the weight of their influence to the cult of facts. First, ascertain the facts, said the positivist, then draw your conclusions from them. This is what may be called the common sense view. It's very clearly given. The positivist method and the common sense view is the same. They focus on facts. So it says only the positivist methods can lead to historical knowledge. That means only facts can lead to credible historical knowledge. This aligns with the common sense view, and hence this is our answer. No, this is not an answer. Sorry, I made a mistake. This is not an answer, obviously. 1 is our answer. It's an except question. Okay. So this aligns with the common sense view. This aligns with the common sense view. This aligns with the common sense view. 1 is our answer because it's the author's view that doesn't align with the common sense view. Okay. All right. Okay, people, perfect. Lakshmi, I'll have to come back to it. Okay, let's start reading the next passage. In the interest of time, I'll come back to it. We took quite some time to explain this because it was a complicated passage. Let's go to passage 2. All right, open the document and read the passage. The title doesn't matter, but read the passage from the document. You will see it in the YouTube description. My team can also send that link again. Please read it. I'll give you 5 minutes and then we'll go to the question. You'll find it simpler. Okay, so go for it and then we'll discuss the questions. I think it's also in the pinned comment. Yeah, it is. Okay. Okay, this is the document. Open it and read the second passage. And please send me the main idea when you're done. Nitin, I got your main idea, but no, I don't think that's the main idea. You're focusing on the points that you've given, Nitin, are consistent with the passage, but they're not the main idea. The main idea is broader than this. Okay, so think about it again. Focus a little bit on the structure of the passage and then try to figure out the main idea again. Go a little broader. You're just focusing on additional points right now. But but definitely good attempt. This is how you guys will learn, right? Main idea is a skill that will develop. You'll have to like generate a lot of main ideas to get better at it. So good job on that. Give it another shot. Yeah, Ayush, I'm going to wait for you to finish the main idea. Okay, great. Fantastic. Good job, Ayush. Very much on the right track this time. Okay, good job. Okay, people send your main ideas. Don't be lazy. Okay, build that skill. And we'll start discussing the passage in a minute. If somebody needs more time, let me know. Pratibha, the politicians are worried about it, but they should not be. I think you're still writing your main idea, so I'll wait for you to finish. Okay, yeah, take a couple of minutes, then we'll start discussing. Somebody was asking me about, I think it was Nirpangna. I'm discussing the previous passage. Please keep reading about positivist, right? So, see, Nirpangna, a positivist is a kind of a philosopher. Okay, I won't go to the details of it because that's not relevant, but you can read up about it. Um, Positivism is a branch of philosophy, okay, that talks about truth and facts and all of that. I also don't know the details of it. We don't need to know the details of it. But a positivist is a philosopher who subscribes to that school of philosophy, positivism. Okay. Um, but it's not important to understand what a positivist is for that, RC. We just had to understand that a positivist focuses on facts, right? So yeah, but since you asked, look it up if you're interested. All right, folks. Can we start discussing? Just in the interest of time. That's why next time, please do pre-read and come the passages. Let's now start discussing. Okay, I won't give you the main idea first. We'll look at the questions and then we'll come back to it. Tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most complex, how do you rate the passage alone, the content of the passage in terms of complexity? Go for it. Tell me. Fair enough. Fair enough. I expected that. So the content is definitely much simpler than the previous one. Also realize that you see the previous one was abstract, right? We were talking about views. We were talking about the common sense view and the author's view and interpretation and facts. It was kind of abstract in nature. This is very concrete, where it talks about Netflix and translations and all of that. Okay, concrete content tends to be simpler than abstract content. Okay, again, it will not always be true, but you can keep that in mind. Concrete, because and most of us are used to reading more concrete content than abstract, unless you come from a philosophies or psychology background. So that is also one factor you can keep in mind when you're selecting passages. Okay, all right, let me run the poll. Go for it, people. Take your time and solve this question. I got an answer in first 30 seconds, and that's wrong. I can see that here. So with this questions, this is like an inference question. Go back and check for evidence. When you're choosing an option, check for evidence. Every inference that you draw should have evidence in the passage. So do that and then solve the question. It might look easy, but that can also be deceptive. So take your time. Last 30 seconds, people. Last 10 seconds. Okay, let's see how you voted. All right, 46% of you are saying 2. Okay, 30% is saying 4. 23% is saying 1. And no takers for 3. Okay, based on the information provided in the passage, all of the following are true except. Okay, so that means 3 are true, 1 is not. And we have to pick the option that is not true. Or in other words, we have to pick the option that we cannot infer from the passage. Okay, all right. Number 1, European television productions have the potential to become global hits. So what you have to ask yourself is, can I draw this inference from the passage? Or in other words, if you have to draw an inference, there has to be evidence in the passage. You should be able to pinpoint, this is the sentence, this is the paragraph, this is the section based on which I'm drawing this inference. So European television productions have the potential to become global hits. If you have read the passage effectively, you will know that there is an example and there is an inference that you can draw. Look at this. Correct, Serene Sea Monster. The economics of European productions are more appealing to American audiences, are more willing than before to give dubbed or subtitled viewing a chance. This means shows such as Lupin, a French crime caper on Netflix, can become global hits. It can become global hits. European television productions have the potential to become global hits. There is evidence for that. This is an except question. We're looking for not true. If this is confusing you, write this down on your notepad in the exam. Okay. Only half of Netflix's original programming in the EU is now produced in America. Is there evidence for that? You should have gotten a trigger if you've read effectively that it did talk about America's share. It says in 2015, about 75% of Netflix original content was American. Now the figure is half, according to Ampere, a media analysis company. It's clearly mentioned there. Okay. It's clearly mentioned that only half of Netflix original programming in the EU is now produced in America. Okay, only half. Initially, it was a big chunk, and now it has reduced to half. So the author was talking about how the European influence is increasing or original productions are increasing in EU. So America's share has dropped. There is evidence for that. National broadcasters dominate in the EU in terms of total television viewing hours. I won't go into the details of it, but it's clearly mentioned, right? That in where does it say that? Somewhere here. Okay. Um, a bigger problem is that national broadcasters still dominate. That's the evidence. So I'm glad you didn't pick that. Netflix has been able to transform itself into a truly European entity. Can you infer this from the passage? That it has been able to transform itself into a truly European entity? Isn't the author talking about cons of this? Like there are so many issues, right? The author says not everything works across borders, right? Comedy sometimes struggles. Then the author is saying in some markets, national broadcasters still dominate, right? Then the author says politicians are worried about it. There are so many concerns around American streaming services or Netflix in particular that Europe still has. There are concerns and there are limitations also in terms of not every genre working across borders, national broadcasters dominating. There are quite a bit of limitations and concerns. So we cannot infer that Netflix has been able to transform itself into a truly European entity. That is not true. And there's also the concern of decisions being taken in America and not in Europe. Okay. So this we can't infer. There is no evidence for that. And hence, this is our answer. Okay. Now, if you got this wrong, what you have to truly ask yourself is, because this was not a tough question, to be very honest, by CAT standards. Okay. Did you do the due diligence? In these kind of questions, when you're drawing inferences, remember evidence is king. For any inference that you're drawing, if you're not able to pinpoint the evidence and tell yourself, then your inference is wrong, most likely. The evidence should come in the form of sentences, paragraphs, or sections, the way I was pointing out. There is clear evidence for 1, 2, and 3. There is no evidence for 4. So do your due diligence of going back and checking for evidence. Specific portions, if you've read it effectively, then you will get triggers of what content is where and how can I draw the inference. That due diligence of checking for evidence is very, very important. Okay. All right. Let's go to question 2. The poll is up. You can vote in the poll. Please like the stream if you've enjoyed the session so far. Like it on YouTube. And I do the session every Friday at 8 p.m. Okay. So we've done with, I think this is the 6th session now. The one next week will be verbal ability for slot 2. So it doesn't require any preparation. So that's a good thing, right? You can just come and then we'll solve the questions, all the verbal ability questions of slot 2. No need to do anything. Just come and we'll discuss it. Then after that, we'll start discussing slot 3. Okay. People read the question carefully. This is a manageable question. You're answering it way too fast. Some of you have answered it in less than 30 seconds. You're not doing the due diligence. Go back and check, look at each option, pick the best answer. Okay. Okay. Last 30 seconds. Last 10 seconds. All right, let's see how you voted. Okay, now 50% of you, half of you are saying it's 1. 35% is saying 2. 14% is saying 4. No takers for 3. Okay, so 3 is not the answer. You're right. The author sees the rise of Netflix in Europe as. Let's interpret the question. The author sees the rise of Netflix in Europe as. So clearly the question is asking you, what is the author's view about the rise of Netflix in Europe? Author's view. Now, I'm going to ask you a simple question. You've read the passage, right? Is the author's view about the rise of Netflix positive or negative? Come on, people. The author's view is definitely positive, right? It connects the, forget compared, it is positive. Okay. See, the author says they should not be worried. And then the author talks about an irony of a European integration is that it was often American companies that facilitated, and gives you examples of American companies that have facilitated integration in Europe, and says Netflix can also do that. The author says in the last paragraph clearly that Netflix can also enable or facilitate integration in Europe, bringing the countries of EU together. How? By sharing common content. They need to have something in common, even if it's just binging on the same series. And then the example. So it's positive, right? Now, if it is positive, there is only one option that's positive. We've eliminated 3. We've eliminated 3, right? You're sure it's not 3. It doesn't talk about entertainment gap at all. It can't be 2. 2 is negative. It can't be 4. 4 is negative. The only one positive remaining is A, and it's a unifying force, bringing the countries together, uniting the countries together. Looming cultural threat is not the author's view. It's the politician's view. An economic threat is not the author's view. The author sees the rise of Netflix in Europe. That's why I always say, read the questions like a child. Read each and every word of the question. Read each and every word of the options. Slow down when you're reading questions and options. Okay, go back and check specific portions. Compare each option. Pick the best answer. You have to do that due diligence. This is where the question setter will set traps. They can only trick you with the questions. So in order for you to not fall for those traps, you have to do the due diligence in each question. Okay, so the answer is 1. Now here, if you went wrong, either think about it. And I always ask yourself, why did you go wrong? Because that will help you improve. Either you made a silly mistake. That means you didn't read the question properly and you didn't think, oh, am I looking for the author's view or am I looking for the politician's view? Either you made a silly mistake like that or you misinterpreted the author's view. So whatever that is, ask yourself and then fix that mistake. Okay, let's go to question 3. It's funny how people start fighting on YouTube. I'm not talking about you guys. We just posted a video. I was looking at the comments. Doesn't take long to make people start fighting on social media, right? I mean, I've also been guilty of doing that on Twitter when I was on Twitter years ago. Twitter though enables that, right? But social media that way, as much as I think it's, there's so many positives, uh, people like have fiery tempers on social media. And the fights are on like really silly things. So it's energy that should be spent in doing an RC is being wasted there. So don't do that. I'm kidding. No. I'm not talking about no, no, not at all. I wasn't talking about a specific community at all. Just I just saw some funny comments. I was commenting on that. That's funny, Ayush. Okay, giving you a little bit more time in this one. It's a critical reasoning question, right? But in the interest of time, let's just try to wrap it up in the next 1 minute. Okay. So yeah, just think about it, put your answer, and then we'll discuss it. Okay. Last 10 seconds, people. All right, let's look at this. Okay, it's a tricky one, right? 54% of you said two. Okay, so there is half of you are saying this is answer. 18% is saying 1 and 3. Okay, 9% is saying 4. All right. Okay. While I explain the question, tell me, would you attempt this question or would you leave this question in the exam? Just tell me that and let's discuss it. Which one of the following research findings would weaken the author's conclusion in the final paragraph? Okay, so it clearly says author's conclusion in the final paragraph. We did discuss the author's conclusion in the final paragraph in the previous question, right? What was the author's conclusion? I mean, one, we know that it is positive about Netflix. Basically, the author's conclusion was that Netflix can help integration of different countries in the EU, right? That's what we discussed, because that's why we're saying it's a unifying force, right? So we'll write unifying force, okay? Then it will enable integration, okay, of countries in the EU, because the author gives up examples of Google Translate and all of that, and then said Netflix can play that role. And how will it enable integration? By sort of streaming common content, right, across the nation. So the author says that, you know, once Netflix starts streaming common content, or if they do that, that will bring them together, because these EU nations will have a common ground, binging on the same series and stuff like that. Okay, so this was the conclusion, right? Broad conclusion. Now the question is saying, which one of the following research findings would weaken that conclusion? So we have to pick an option that would weaken it. Now, weaken means adding a doubt. Always remember that. Weaken doesn't mean disproving. Weaken means you'll have to, the option will add a doubt in the author's conclusion. Okay, so let's look at it. Number one, research shows that Netflix has been gradually losing market share to other streaming television service providers. Okay, how does it weaken it? Okay, it is gradually losing market share, all right, to other streaming television service providers, all right. One, the discussion is not about one streaming provider versus another streaming provider, okay. Now, this is true. Let's assume this is true, that Netflix is losing its share to, let's say, other streaming service providers in the EU. How does it weaken this conclusion? It is losing market share, fair enough, but still it can generate common content and it can still enable integration. So it doesn't attack this conclusion in any way, right? It seems attractive because saying gradually losing market share, but to other streaming television service providers, that's not the discussion, number one. And it doesn't take away anything from the fact that it can act as a unifying force. Okay, so think about it. Let's come down to two. Research shows there is a wide variance in the popularity and viewing of Netflix shows across different EU countries. Wide variance in the popularity and viewing of Netflix shows. That means in different EU countries, people are consuming different content. Now, if they're consuming different content, then how will Netflix act as a unifying force? Because Netflix will enable integration through common content. So this option is telling you the content is not common. There is a wide variance in the popularity and viewing of Netflix. So it weakens the conclusion, right? Because everything is based on common content. But if the content is not common, if there is wide variance in what they are watching, then it will hinder Netflix's ability to unify the countries or enable integration. Think about it. So this does add a doubt. One is not the answer. Two adds a doubt. Let's park it. Research shows that older women across the EU enjoy watching romantic comedies, whereas younger women prefer historical fiction dramas. Okay. Older women across the EU, younger women across the EU, they're at least watching common content, right? Fine, the older and younger people are watching different content. That's bound to happen. But older women across EU are watching romantic comedies. Younger women are preferring historical fiction dramas. It doesn't attack the conclusion. This is still good, I would say, for the conclusion, because across EU, older women are watching the similar content. It's a good thing. Okay. Research shows that Netflix hits produced in France are very popular with North American audience. How is this even related? We are talking about countries within the EU. France being popular with North America is not even in this discussion at all. So this is completely out of scope. And always remember with critical reasoning questions, okay, this is a weaken question, right? Either the answer will weaken, or it will strengthen, or it will be unrelated. The unrelated ones are often difficult to spot. This is completely unrelated. They sound attractive, but it's unrelated. Okay, so the answer here is 2. Tricky one. Okay, some of you, what did you guys say about it? Whether you will skip, not skip, you didn't tell me that, right? Or did you tell me that? Or maybe you did tell me that. Okay. So that's the answer, right? Let's go to question 4. Let's solve this. And then I'm happy to answer any general questions or repeat anything that you didn't understand. Okay. We'll finish this and we'll come back to it. You can still put your question. I'll go through them once again at the end. No, if true, also Antariksha will not change the question in any way, right? I mean, even if it's true, it's fine. Still, the answer would be the same. Okay, let me come back to it and understand what your question is. But for now, let's focus on this. If true means you have to assume that all the 4 options are true, right? So I don't think it will make a difference, but I'll look into it. Excuse me. No, Serene Sea Monster, it wasn't about old age populace watching history shows. The author's conclusion was about unifying force and integration. That was just one point in the last paragraph, right? To support the author's conclusion. It was not about old age people watching history shows. That's not the focus of the para or the RC, right? Think about it. It's much broader than that. That's just one of the additional points there. Good evening, Gautam. It's a very interesting question. Is this question is skipped? Ayush, good question selection. I mean, it is. It is. I wouldn't say it's a skip for everyone. You should always, try to attempt the question. But if you're not like reasonably sure about your choice, right? Or if like 3 options are confusing you, or if you're like, I usually say if you're not 90% sure, then don't mark it, right? But if you're like 50-50, then leave it. 50-50 is too low for you to take a risk. So yes, you're right that this question is tricky. Probably the trickiest out of the 4 in this RC. The first 2 were manageable. Yeah. Questions also anchored around question 2. Interesting. Yes, you can say that in a way. In a way, yeah. Okay. In a way. Interesting. Very nice. People, last 30 seconds and then let's close it. In the meantime, let's do something interesting with this. Whatever option you've picked, can you justify the answer in chat? That's also very good way of learning, by the way. Articulate it. Your English doesn't matter. Okay, don't worry about your written English. But explain to me as to why have you picked 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, justify your correct answer. Really help you build skill. Okay, last 10 seconds and we'll close it. Aha. Okay. Okay. I'm not going to say anything. I'll come back to it. Okay. I'm ending the poll. I'm excited to should do this more often. Ask you guys to justify your answers. Okay. 53% are saying no. Wait. 50% are saying 3. Okay. 35% is saying 1. 14% is saying 2, and no takers for 4. Okay. I'll read your explanations. I've read some of them. Based only on information provided in the passage, which one of the following hypothetical Netflix shows would be most successful with audiences across the EU? This is like an extrapolation question. Okay, because the options are random. Okay, so you have to understand it, and then you also have to connect it to a random option. Extrapolation questions are typically tricky. That doesn't mean you leave an extrapolation straight away. You always look at the options. If the options are manageable, attempt it. But don't take a risk with extrapolation questions. Don't take a risk with CR questions. That's what we mean by that. Okay. All right. Very good. So let's look at it. Which one of the following hypothetical Netflix shows would be most successful with audiences across the EU? I hope you focused on this. This is important. Audiences across the EU. It's only talking about that. Okay. Right. A transatlantic romantic drama set in Europe and America. Okay. Let me read your option 1, because Netflix content sometimes seems stuck in an uncanny valley somewhere in the mid-Atlantic. Nitin, does that indicate that it would be successful in the EU? That statement, which says Netflix content, to be fair, Netflix content sometimes seems stuck in an uncanny valley somewhere in the mid-Atlantic with local quirks stripped out. This is being mentioned with reference to the concern that politicians have around Netflix and the American influence attacking the cultural sovereignty of Europe. American influence will influence EU's culture. That is the concern here. But how is this related to popularity of Netflix shows in the EU? In fact, if you think about it, it says uncanny valley somewhere in the mid-Atlantic with local quirks stripped out. So it doesn't have those local nuances, the Netflix shows. If the Netflix shows don't have local nuances, it might even decrease the popularity in the EU, right? So this is not connected to popularity of Netflix shows in EU, right? So that option is irrelevant to what we're discussing. But I understand I can understand why you picked it, but you misinterpreted it. Okay, so you just sort of go back and think about it and improve your comprehension, but this is not in the context of popularity. Okay. An original German TV science fiction production. You should have gotten a trigger that we did speak about German shows in the second paragraph. If you read it effectively, you should go back and reread it then. Okay. Second paragraph, sorry, second, or was it second? Not really. No, it was here. Somewhere that it has a problem. Yes. Not everything, third paragraph. Not everything works across borders. Comedy sometimes struggles. Okay. Whodunits and bloodthirsty maelstorms between archers have a more universal appeal. Some do it better than others. German television is not always built for export. If German television is not built for export outside Germany, then how will it be successful across the EU? It's not built for export. So the original German TV science, the chances of it being successful across the EU, it's not built for export outside Germany. Not your answer. A murder mystery drama set in North Africa and France. And here I'm just going to give kudos to Rishabh. Good job on that. Okay. Now look at Rishabh's answer. That is the evidence, and that's a very sharp way of looking at the RC. It says whodunits and bloodthirsty maelstorms between arch-Romans have a universal appeal. Whodunits and bloodthirsty whodunits are mysteries, typically murder mysteries. Whodunits means who did the murder. So whodunit means that, a murder mystery. So if there is a murder mystery drama set in North Africa and France, the chance of it being successful because they have universal appeal. If they have universal appeal, they will be successful across the EU as well. Okay, let's park it. An Italian comedy show hosted by an international star, comedy doesn't work. Okay, that's clearly written. I'm glad you didn't pick this. The answer is 3. It's a tricky question. So if people who got it right, good job on this. Okay. And if you got it right for the wrong reasons, even better. People who didn't get it right, don't worry about it. Just learn from it. All right. Amazing. Perfect. My reasoning is I want to watch it. Okay, that's an interesting reasoning. I know you're kidding, but yeah, that's funny though. All right, people. So this is the end of the session. If you have any general questions, feel free to put them. I'll also go through it. If the person's still around, I'll answer the question. We do this every Friday. So next Friday we'll do what? We will do slot 2 verbal ability. Okay, no preparation required. Just come for the session, energized. And oh, wait, I didn't show you the main idea for this. Damn it. Sorry. Okay, this is the main idea. People have a look at it. Okay, I think I've explained quite a bit of it, but please have a look at it. Read it and let me know if you have any questions. It's quite detailed. But what I've basically said is it focuses on the translation of online streaming content, especially Netflix. Okay, it talks about the pros, it talks about the cons, right? And it says another con, which is American influence being perceived as a threat to Europe's cultural sovereignty. The author believes it won't happen. The author says that, in fact, Netflix will enable cultural integration. Okay, so again, I've detailed the pros and cons. You don't have to mention it in such detail, but it's translation of online streaming content, the pros and cons, and then the author sort of focusing on one con and saying the politicians don't have to worry about it because it will facilitate integration. Okay, so you can have a look at it. Now, we have a test series. So if you're interested, non-2AM students, the link is there in chat. There's a coupon code as well. You can get 26 mocks, 8,000 practice questions, and all the past papers as mocks for 4,999. You can use the coupon code, which is mentioned in chat, and click on it. Okay. All right. Now let me just go back and see if there are questions that I can answer. One second. Serene Sea Monster, if you're still around, accuracy of RC is kind of stuck at 50%. Also, while picking main ideas of paras, often some point is missed, which gets the questions wrong, which are anchored above that one point, right? If your accuracy is stuck at 50%, what you need to ask yourself is, are you attempting a lot of questions? Okay. Don't force yourself to attempt all the questions in an RC. Just because you have read an RC and understood the RC doesn't mean you have to attempt all the 4 questions. Questions will be tricky. Okay. So always be careful of that. Don't force yourself. Leaving one question is very normal in an RC. Okay. Because typically one question is super tricky. Okay. Sometimes there'll be situations where you'll be able to solve only 2 questions, and you have to be okay with that. Okay. Drag yourself away from questions that are difficult. If you're not 90% sure, don't mark it. Okay, 90% sure is the general guideline that I give. If your competency is high, you can take a bit more risk. You can say 80% sure or something like that, right? But leave questions if you're attempting too many questions. Second, while we are reading the RC, we focus on the main idea. But for questions, please go back to specific portions, reread those details, and then answer the question, like the way I was doing it. So that way, if you're missing out on an additional point, then you can always go back. If there's a question on the additional point, only then spend time on the additional point. But go back, reread it, get the context. Sometimes questions will talk about one line. That doesn't mean you only go and read that line. You read the lines above, you read the lines below, understand the context, and then answer it. Okay. And the third tip that I can give you is shadow answers. Read the question, build a shadow answer in your head by rereading the specific portion, then look at the options. It will improve your accuracy. Okay, so 3 things I've told you. Attempt fewer questions if you're attempting too many. Go back to specific portions and reread it. If there are questions focused on details, build shadow answers. Okay. Awesome. Let's see. So what is the difference between the author introduces an idea and explains it and the author defines an idea? Okay, Rishabh is going to repeat that question. One second. What are the differences between the author introduces an idea and explains it? The author defines an idea and explains it. What is the difference when answering structure of... Oh, okay. Interesting. Author introduces an idea and explains it. Author defines an idea and explains it. I understand that question type that you're talking about. Introduces an idea, defines an idea. I think, again, Rishabh, this seems like a weird kind of an option, but I know what you're talking about. See, again, I'll have to look at the question. So if possible, you can put that question, okay, while answering a mock. Okay. You can put it, I don't know if you're our student or not. If you're our student, put it on the group, WhatsApp group, I'll reply to it. If you're not, then put it on YouTube comments, the question, and then I can look into it and explain. But I'll tell you what I think about this. See, introduces an idea, that means introduces versus defining, right? I would think that defining is more elaborate, right? So defining an idea is like the author sort of defines it completely. Introduces as the author touches on it, introduces it, and then explains it. But then again, there's explanation on both counts. It's weird. Okay. I'll need to see the question, Rishabh. Okay. You can either put it on YouTube comments or on the group if you're a student, or email info@2am.com. Okay. And then I'll get back to you. But this is very weird. These kind of questions don't typically appear in CAT, but we'll see. Okay. All right. What is it saying? What is it saying? I got in this RC2 question 1, I find option 2 to be convoluted. Okay. Let's see. In this RC2 question 1, okay. Option 2 to be convoluted. All right. So, Ayush, this one, are you talking about this one? Quickly confirm. Only half of Netflix original program in the EU is now produced in America. Okay. All right. So, see, go back and check this. It says the economics of European productions are more appealing. Okay, so you know what the author is saying is that producing content in Europe is quite appealing from an economic standpoint. So it's probably cheaper or it's cost effective to produce this content in Europe. American audience are more willing. Okay, then gives an example. In 2015, about 75% of Netflix's original content was American. Now the figure is half, according to Ampere. 75% of Netflix original content was American. Now it is 50%. Okay. So currently, Netflix original content is 50%. 50% is half. Right? So it says only half of Netflix's original program in the EU is now produced in America. No, so okay, I get what you're saying. See, now the figure is half. So what we are inferring from here is, okay, hold on. Only half of Netflix original programming in the EU is now produced in America. Okay, all right. See, it's saying basically 50% of half of Netflix original content is produced in America. This sentence is saying half of Netflix's original content is produced in America. That's what it means. 75% was American earlier. Now the figure is half. Okay, so it's see, you have to connect it with this, right? It's talking about production. So it's talking about content in America. So 75%, now it's 50%, which is half. And that's where we're coming. Only half of Netflix original programming is now produced in America. Okay, so you'll have to infer with the productions, because we're talking about productions. So that's how we infer that we're talking about production, content produced in America. Okay, all right. Okay, people, let's see, is there anything else? So suddenly my RC accuracy came down. Lokesh, what you'll have to now, again, when you say RC accuracy came down, if it came down on one mock, Don't worry about that. These fluctuations are bound to happen. So don't rely on 1 or 2 data points. Always look at the average. Okay. But if you're saying that, okay, your accuracy has come down in like 3-4 mocks consistently, then that's something to be looked at. But 1 mock doesn't matter. Okay. So accuracy, so that's what you need to understand. Like 1 mock, let's not go there because the mock can be an off day, the mock can be difficult. But if the average has come down, then let's talk about it. Okay. Which of the following best explains the structure of the passage? Yeah, I get the question, Rishabh. I got the question when you told me as well. It's a weird question, to be very honest. Okay. I don't know. The author introduces an idea, the author defines an idea. To me, it seems the same. No, wait, the author introduces an idea and explains why it occurs. The author defines an idea and explains it. Okay, the difference probably is there. Explains why it occurs and explains it. Think about that. So explains why it occurs, it's quite specific. It's only explaining why it occurs. Explains it as a general explanation. So maybe the difference is there, Rishabh, and not in the introducing, defining. Okay, again, I'll have to look at the whole question and RC and stuff like that. Okay, but think about that. It's a weird question. Okay, people, I'm going to end the class here. We'll meet at next week, 8 p.m. Please like the stream. If you have any more questions, put it in YouTube comments and I'll get back to you. Okay, take care, everyone.